part of politics for over 4 decades now. He's managed many an election, but this is his first brush with electoral politics, really, as long as he's been in politics now. The leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, Narendra Modi's closest confidant, or a member of the 170 club? Most of those questions will be answered by my guest today on the show, Arun Jaitley on Delhi Dialogue. Thanks a lot for joining us on the show. You're in the middle of your campaign. You have for a very long been the backroom boy. You've managed battles from behind the scene, in the thick of action. How does it feel, Mr. Jaitley?
Well, first of all, let me correct that impression. I didn't contest elections, but I was in the forefront also. I've been a political activist now for 43 years from my student days. My most active election was 1977. And I've been in mass politics. Since childhood, I've been a party member. I didn't contest elections because I thought I'll settle down happily as a lawyer and work for the party. What appears to have happened is that I was suddenly taken by surprise in 1999 when I was asked to join the government. And thereafter, I've been asked to handle elections. Now, the result of all this is that 2004, 2009, I didn't contest. But this time, I also wanted this to be a part of my composite experience in life, in politics. So the party suggested and I was a bit too happy for it. You know,
43 years is a very long time in politics. How is the brush with electoral politics? Is it fair to presume that this is Mr. Jaitley's biggest moment as far as his political career is concerned?
I don't know. I don't really know. I've had several high points. Obviously, you also have your low points. So far, if I look back, I made differently. If you ask me which was your high point, not when I became a minister, not when I became the leader of opposition. My high point was when I became the first man in the whole country to offer satyagraha against the emergency and go to jail as a student. I think that's a memory in me which can never be erased.
You know,
and that was my training as a political activist.
One does see a glimpse of that political activist when you do debates in Rajya Sabha. You really are someone who really speaks from the heart, as someone who we follow very closely. Here in Amritsar, your political opponent is a royal. Many people believe he's out of touch with ground reality. But what is your poll plank to people here in Amritsar?
I think it's not out of touch with reality. I think he relishes talking down to people. And that's feudalism. Therefore, in a democracy that doesn't work, it will never work. My poll plank is the following. I genuinely have a lot of emotional relationship with this place. This is my place where my mother was born, my sister was born. It's my part hometown. My other hometown is in Pakistan, Lahore. My wife was born here. And I've been coming here since childhood. And therefore, if there is any other place other than Delhi that I would politically identify myself, it's Punjab and Amritsar. I speak the language here, I eat the food which is here. It's my culture. I think the first plank in this election is a national plank. The Congress government needs to be removed. And there's a huge momentum which has gathered against the government. I think people have by and large made up their mind to elect an alternative. And the alternative obviously is the NDA, led by Mr. Modi. I think the second is, within the city of Amritsar, it's a city with a lot of buoyancy. It's a business city. It's a city of religion. And I think their two mainstays for the future are tourism and trade. Manufacturing, if it can be recovered. Its original manufacturing has suffered hugely. And therefore, with these two factors, I think if one concentrates on them, the tourism infrastructure, if possible, push for opening of the border trade, I think in that eventuality, we'll be able to bring back the old glory of the city.
One gets a glimpse of the former Commerce Minister also talking at this stage. But I want to just turn focus to your party. Yes, you're riding this wave. Yes, there is a sense that people do want a change. And there is this overwhelming support in favor of the BJP led by Mr. Modi. But just to talk about the minuses right now, there are these, at least perception-wise, there is this issue of difference within the party, as if the old guard is being sidelined. Experts within and outside of journalistic circles believe that it's time the old guard takes a break and let the new breed come over. What is your personal take on this? I mean, how would you address that perception?
You see, that's a natural phenomena. But in politics, the concept of retirement doesn't exist.
Should it
And
exist?
I don't think so. It's public service and you should serve the people. It's a passion for you. You've given your life for it. You didn't settle down in any other career. You are so embedded in public affairs that you'd like to continue as long as you can. Now, we have no problem at all with our seniors. In fact, they are the ones who groomed us. From Narendra Modi to Venkaiah Naidu to Sushma Swaraj, myself, we have all been groomed personally by Mr. Advani. Now, in such a situation, for us to think of his retiring or distance ourselves is unthinkable. Now, out of respect, it's like a Hindu undivided family. You go by the sentiment of the elder and you leave the choice to them. And that's what we did. As far as Dr. Joshi was concerned, he had to shift his seat. He shifted to a seat which is much better seat, the Kanpur seat. Regrettably, we couldn't accommodate Mr. Jaswant Singh. The central leadership was almost unanimous in wanting to adjust him. The state said there is a winnability factor in that constituency, he can't be adjusted. I only wish he had shown some patience.
I think people who get older run out of patience sooner, and perhaps that's one issue. But how would you address the perception that there is this strife between the old guard and people like yourselves or Mr. Modi, the new brass who's really taking over? You are actually calling the shots right now.
You see, as I said, a generational change is a natural process. It's bound to happen. In some parties, it happens by inheritance within the family. In other parties, you work for it. Now, when you call us young, we've all been in this game for over 40 years, 4 decades. So we are not that young anymore. But I can tell you, we know our restraint and we know how to function with our elders.
It's time for a breather here on Delhi Dialogue. We come back and discuss the Modi mania. Is campaign around one man really a good idea? In a moment from now. You know, I want to specifically draw your attention to something that is going on in the social media to a very large extent. And because you're one of the most candid people I know in Indian politics, I will ask you this question. There is this whole conspiracy theory of a 170 club that people are talking about. How personally disappointed are you with this, and where do you think this is really emanating from?
I'll tell you, when we decided Mr. Modi's name, I knew for sure we are going to cross the 200 mark. And to me, it was clear that the Congress will be below 100. In fact, some of my colleagues who had an alternative view that this will be 200 versus 100 was a broad figure I used to cite. Now, social media is a great opening that the world has seen. It's also can be highly irresponsible.
That's right.
So people who are frag, you have freaks on it, you have mavericks on it. So somebody starts, there is imagining conspiracy theories. We are having a do or die battle how to really
get to 200 and pass that.
To cross that figure. I think the 170 theory which people have created in the social media has become obsolete. Now we are at NDA 250 theory. So how do you cross the last mile? I think hopefully with the alliance with TDP going on very well, we'll get 272 on our own as NDA. And the more the merrier.
So the mission 272 perhaps will be accomplished. The question why I asked you this question was that why hasn't the BJP rebutted substantially this whole 170 club theory? People believe, I mean, the whole conspiracy is that within the BJP there are factions, there are leaders who want that number to be restricted because that will restrict Mr. Modi from becoming the Prime Minister.
I think if you go on to the social media, particularly the Twitter, you'll find people fearlessly expressing themselves, even irresponsibly expressing themselves. So the predominant view about me has been that I am Mr. Modi's strongest supporter. And at times some people criticize me for that. And some mavericks on the social media believe I'm a part of the 170 club. Therefore, how can we respond to this kind of a criticism?
Where does the reality lie?
Well, the reality is that I was the first person in the BJP to suggest that there is a groundswell for Mr. Modi and the party should declare his name. When there was slight delay, I had said that the people have already decided, the party cadres have decided, the parliamentary board has to formally sanction it. And since the day his name has been declared, I have been relentless in supporting him. I'll continue to do that.
Sir, I will ask you this question that hypothetically speaking, I know your optimism is perhaps based on the reality you see on the ground, the 272 mission. But hypothetically speaking, if you do need the numbers by the end of it and some allies turn around and say that we are willing to support the BJP but not Mr. Modi, the question then is, will you risk the prospect of forming a government without him?
I don't think reasonably such a situation will arise.
If it were to.
Those who have joined the NDA today have joined it consciously, knowing that Mr. Modi is the leader. We'll cross the halfway mark, or let me assume at best we'll be within handshaking distance of that mark. And you have sufficient number of non-Congress parties in the states. Our biggest strength is going to be if 250 plus doesn't form a government, then 75 plus can't form it.
That's right.
The 25 plus can't form it. So this talk about 160 and 250 club, I think we should now have a talk about the club of 75.
Realistically speaking, will there ever be an NDA government without Mr. Modi heading it?
I don't see it happening today.
I'll ask you this. I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question.
Can I tell you?
Yes.
There are some elections which get centered around individuals. The 1989 election got centered around Mr. VP Singh. The mandate was for him.
That's right.
The 98-99 elections got centered around Mr. Vajpayee. The mandate was for him. And this is Mr. Modi's election.
Fair point indeed. I'll tell you why I'm asking you this question. Many political observers and experts believe that if it comes down to choosing Mr. Modi or somebody else, the top job could actually come your way. As somebody who's been a part of, no, I'm not going to say policy making, but electoral politics for a very long time now, 4 decades is a long time. Are you prepared for the top job?
I'll tell you, I have not even thought about it because I don't think that situation arises as of today. The reactions to Mr. Modi by some people are extreme. You have the largest number of supporters and you have some people who continuously campaign against him. Now, those who are suggesting it are not friends of mine. They are all those who are actively campaigning against him. So they see some people like us as probably in their eyes a lesser evil. So why should we even waste a thought on them?
But you're very, very well qualified to do that top job. And,
well,
and a whole section of young India sees you as doing that top job.
Well, thank you very much. If I can do that job, I'm surely competent to do some other lesser job which may be assigned to me.
Fair enough. I'll just come back to the case of the missing manifesto. There's much that has been said about the BJP's development plan, and congratulations, you've let your campaign be on development, you've let your campaign be on growth. We've not had any of these mandir issues come anywhere close to that campaign. Are you a little disappointed then that the manifesto hasn't come? Because the question there is, where is the blueprint?
I'll tell you. The draft of the manifesto is ready. It was circulated to all of us and we made suggestions. There have been extensive discussions within the party. We were planning to release it on the 3rd. Right. And logically, it's correct we should have released it on the 3rd. Now, because 5-6 people, the dates are not tallying. Now, 5th, Mr. Rajnath Singh is filing his nomination, Mr. Advani is filing his nomination. 6th, everybody has rallies planned. So they've seen the common available date for all, which is the 7th. A date on which I am not available because I filed my nomination on the 7th. Right. But I have chosen to keep quiet. Even if I am not there, the manifesto should go on. It can't be delayed anymore.
But is there any issue with the Election Commission because polling begins on that day
itself?
No,
Election Commission, a manifesto is not a campaign.
On that note, it's time for a breather here on Delhi Dialogue. We come back and discuss a whole host of political and economic issues with Mr. Arun Jaitley, who's my very special guest on Delhi Dialogue. I've seen your debates in Parliament. You are somebody who really understands how modern economy is really changing. We are a very coupled country today. We cannot live in isolation. What happens in the world, in the US, impacts us. What happens in Europe impacts us. And as somebody who understands this modern economy, and also Mr. Modi's plank of development, high growth, he's gone to China, Japan, all of those places, seen their models. Is there going to be some kind of a strife between this thought, this ideology versus the whole Swadeshi, the whole, doing it within India campaign?
I look at Swadeshi as not an ideology which closes your doors. I look at Swadeshi as an India first ideology. Whatever is in the interest of my country's economy, I would rather call that Swadeshi. So what does India need? India doesn't need redistribution of poverty. India needs creation of wealth. India needs sharing of that wealth. India needs upping the growth rates. India needs poverty alleviation schemes, which could even be asset generating and not depending merely on trickle down or pulled up. It also means really spending the larger resource of the state for people in order to push them out of poverty itself.
Right.
And therefore, this being an Indian model, you need a combination of both. Therefore, an economy which is expanded, an economy which is growing, an economy where economic activity expands in a big way, that's what India needs.
India also needs hope, and I think that hope is being seen at least in our capital markets just now. You see the rally that's happening. Mr. Chidambaram has said on record this rally is happening because of macro fundamentals that are turning around because of the UPA's actions. What do you realistically attribute this to? Is this a hope rally for Mr. Modi for the BJP?
I think this election itself is a combination of two facts. Anguish against the UPA and hope in Mr. Modi. Now, this hope in Mr. Modi makes is a relevant factor for confidence to be rebuilt in the Indian economy. Therefore, the expectation is a political change is a condition precedent for markets to move up, for the investment environment in the country to move up, for economic activity in India to grow. And after that political change, how much does a new government facilitate business?
That's right.
How does it recreate the investment cycle? How much it eases the possibility of doing business? How decisive is the new government? What are the clearances which are all pending that it makes? I think that's what's going to determine the larger roadmap.
I will ask you a question that a lot of market participants want to hear from you particularly, and I'm going to come why in a moment from now. The whole FDI and retail debate, the buzz is that in your manifesto you're looking to say that we will revoke it if we do come to power. Isn't that sending a wrong signal to the investor community?
I think you should wait for our manifesto when it comes as to what we do with the existing. But we've been upfront. Even though I consider myself to be on the more liberal side as far as modern economics is concerned.
That's right.
This is one area where I personally also have a reservation. Till we can improve our manufacturing and go in for low-cost manufacturing, I'd rather wait for allowing any of these steps to come into this country. As of today, I don't think it will be in India's interest. And therefore, this is one area we are not against FDI.
That's right.
I am one of those who believe that it's an additionality of resource. And therefore, for expanding economic activity, you'll require it. But which sector? We are entitled to choose.
And you've made very pertinent points even in your debate in Parliament. Why I'm asking you this question, sir, is that if you were to revoke this policy, will that send a wrong signal to the investor community that there is no policy continuity in India?
I think the investors already know, they factored that in.
That this policy will not go through.
That they don't. And you see, I can tell you there's a lesson to be learned. Unless there is a larger national consensus, don't do things like this. You see, you may give a permission at the center, the state will not allowing it, the municipal bodies will not allow it, there will be popular protests. So the UPA announced a decision in the abstract and you don't see the impact of it on the ground.
Let me just be the devil's advocate for a minute. They even contested this in Parliament. It went through. Will it then be wise to put this on hold, this particular policy?
Parliament was a debate. You see, going through in Parliament means you tell the CBI to manage the BSP
Allies.
and the SP and it goes through. That hardly means anything. The popular mood in India is not for it.
Fair point, and I think that's something that people will factor in. Three last questions, sir. Will it now be tough for any government that comes in, and you've been on record saying that you are willing and your government will be willing to review gas prices? It's become a huge political issue. Will it be now tough for any government to go ahead with gas prices in the nature that they are right now?
Why not? I'll tell you. There is now a mandatory obligation on the new government to reconsider it, because that's what the Election Commission has said.
Right.
That's what the government's own affidavit in the Supreme Court is. Now, having said that, experts have to examine transparently as to what the relevant formula is. Mr. Rangarajan has given a particular formula, whether it's only factoring the import prices of different kinds, or it's going to factor in the cost plus basis.
Right.
I think this has to be factored, and while factoring it, you have to keep two things in mind. We need gas exploration.
That's right.
We can't have any unreasonable price which makes it impossible, or which gives an exorbitant profit to the operator. So you'll have to find the middle course. And therefore, once there is a transparent formulation which explains to the country what the pricing is, this kind of a fake propaganda that this is everybody has been won over. You see, I am honest, but that doesn't mean the rest of the world is dishonest. Right. Therefore, I think the likes of Mr. Kejriwal and Mr. Prashant Bhushan must start accepting it, that there are many honest men in this country also.
Are you on the government as far as this gas pricing is concerned? Because this is a very technical issue. It's been weighed upon. It's been deliberated upon.
I would go by what the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance said.
Right.
Revisit it. And then once you are able to take the country into confidence about the formulation of the pricing, etc., what factors have been taken in. And I am sure election time is not the best time to make a larger comment on this. I think the government must satisfy the conscience of this country.
Fair enough. It's not just the markets that are rallying in anticipation of Mr. Modi's government coming in and you being in charge of big policy making. It's also the big corporate houses that are firmly behind the BJP. There are two questions there. Why so? Why do you think they are rallying behind Mr. Modi and behind the BJP? And the second question, sir, is that why has the BJP not retaliated on these all kinds of shooting from the hip charges about, crony capitalism, this nexus between Mr. Ambani, Mr. Adani, Mr. Modi? Why is the BJP not rebutting this?
Why should we allow a fake propaganda to occupy the center stage? Mr. Kejriwal is a master of fake propaganda. Gas prices are decided by Congress. He doesn't blame the Congress, he wants to blame the BJP for it. His politics has evolved strategically from anti-corruption to anti-Modi. Therefore, we don't allow him to occupy the center stage. We are going ahead with our own agenda. Secondly, crony capitalism, Mr. Chidambaram should realize, is too irresponsible a man to use that phrase. Was 2G allocation crony capitalism? Was not coal block allocation crony capitalism? Where is BJP's crony capitalism? Just because a phrase exists, Chidambaram can't use it and get away with it.
Why has the BJP not retaliated on this one charge? Because is it fair to drag big business into this whole political debate?
So. If you have an evidence, please bring them in. If you have no evidence, just don't go by slogans.
Are you upset with the fact that Mr. Mukesh Ambani's name has been dragged into this whole political campaign?
Well, I think it's for Mr. Ambani to take care of his name being dragged in. But as far as the BJP is concerned, there is no cogent evidence. And I think we dismiss the charge with all the contempt that it deserves. We are going ahead with our positive agenda. We are not going to be derailed by this kind of a campaign.
BJP's campaign is centered around Mr. Modi, and for reasons that you said before, there is this groundswell for him. But is there also a risk of too much riding on one man alone?
No, our campaign is based on phase 1, the anti-incumbency, the anguish, phase 2, the hope. And since he symbolizes that hope, and his popularity levels are very high, it's obvious that there will be some emphasis on him.
I'll presume for a second that some of the theories about you being a close confidant of Mr. Modi is indeed true, and I'm tempted to believe it is. Why don't you advise him to speak to the media? He has economic ideologies, he has development agenda. Should the prime ministerial candidate be indifferent to media?
No, he started speaking to some channels.
Very few.
Very few. And therefore, whatever time he has, I'm sure he's going to speak to the channels, some of the channels even more.
As I wrap this interview, am I speaking to India's next finance minister?
We haven't given a thought on this. Frankly, that's the least on our agenda. I think our first job is to win this election, and we are working only on that.
Is that a portfolio that excites you, though?
Well, I have been a party worker since childhood. Whether I am given any responsibility or no responsibility, I'm quite happy with it.
You've criticized them. I'm asking you this question simply because you understand the issues that went wrong in the last 5 years. You understand why the economy got derailed. Would you not want to be the man in charge to fix it?
Not at all. You see, I am quite happy with any responsibility or no responsibility, because lawyers have an ability for arguing whichever brief is offered to them.
Thank you very much for talking to us. Pleasure.